Hello everyone and welcome back to Cutting Edge Action. In this one we are going to be comparing a folder in the SOG Seal Flipper XR to the Benchmade Bushcrafter fixed blade to see if a folder can truly be your single tool when it comes to survival, bushcrafting, etc. The tests in this video aren't really scientific, but they should give an accurate representation of the capabilities of each knife. First, I'm going to use each knife to baton some logs, and then I'm going to shave a bunch of feathers off of the logs that I've cut with each knife to see how the edge has held up after doing the batoning. Then finally, I will go ahead and start a fire to test out the fire starting capabilities of each knife after I've made my feathers. Now basically my rationale here is I want to see if you can replace a fixed blade with a folder in the Seal Flipper XR. The Seal Flipper claims to be a professional use knife, and SOG says the lock will take 1,500 pounds of pressure. So we'll see how it stacks up against the Bushcrafter. And before I get into this, guys, I want to say batoning is never advisable with a folder, but if any can, the Seal Flipper is probably a good candidate. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get the specs out of the way here for each knife. Here are the specs for the Seal Flipper. Have them on screen here directly from SOG. And here are the specs for the Benchmade Bushcrafter. Both very, very stunning, good looking knives. Okay guys, so now let's go ahead and get into the testing portion of the video. We'll start with the SOG Seal Flipper first. At first, the batoning really didn't seem to represent any challenge to this beast of a knife. However, after just a few strikes, you can see the XR lock fails almost immediately. And you can really see the surprise in my face when this happens so quickly with a folding knife that costs close to $200 on a lock that claims to be able to support 1,500 pounds. There is absolutely no way I exerted that much pressure on the locking mechanism. After some examination of the pivot, the crossbar, and the lock, all of them appear to be intact. The problem is actually with the rear spine of the blade. I don't know if I'm going to be able to capture that in the studio segment, but as you can see, the locking mechanism does not go far enough forward to actually properly lock this knife in place. Meaning, if you apply too much pressure at the tip, then the knife is just going to swing closed because the lock bar is not far enough forward. Now this would be a relatively easy fix. You would just have to take the knife apart and then very, very slightly sand down the rear spine of the knife that the locking mechanism slides over. And I can demonstrate to you guys that this lock bar isn't going far enough forward, because as you can see, right now in the closed position, there is no gap between this plastic cover for the lock bar and the front edge of it that keeps it in its position. But if I flip the knife open, you can see there is now a very small gap there. And that small gap is apparently all it takes to make it so that this thing can just swing closed when too much pressure is applied in a downward direction at the tip of the knife. Not good. Not good at all. Now this issue probably would be fixed by itself over time if you just swung the knife open and closed enough. Eventually that spine of the blade would wear down to the point where the lock would fully engage properly, but obviously this is not a knife that you would want from the factory in this condition. You really could not depend on it with that lock bar not going far enough forward to actually get this thing fully locked up. This is right back with the theme of QC issues that I've had with other SOG knives. If you remember in my Terminus XR LTE video, I had several QC issues there, and I've got at least one here. Of course, I haven't done additional testing with this knife because I don't really trust it all that much, but it definitely should not have left the factory in this state. And while it may be a self-correcting problem over time, I wouldn't even call this thing really safe to use in this state. The blade is so gosh darn heavy, it could easily remove fingers if it were to swing closed while you were working with it. I really, really want to love the Seal Flipper, and I wanted to recommend this knife. I wanted to say in this video, hey guys, this is a true replacement for a fixed blade, but it just isn't that, and I wouldn't even call this a professional use folder. I'm sorry, SOG. I know you probably don't like me batoning your knife and treating it like this, but that's just how it is. You can baton with a bug out, so there is absolutely no reason I shouldn't be able to baton a single log with this knife and not be able to get through. And also, then there's the fact that I was able to so quickly identify the QC issue that made this issue apparent in the first place. If I can identify by eye that lock bar is not going far enough forward, as you guys saw, then there is a serious QC problem when they're sending this knife out the door for $190. The Bushcrafter, on the other hand, really shines in the batoning test. You can see that it just really tears right through that dense cherry wood, and the contouring of the scales gives excellent grip whether or not you're wearing gloves. It is a very comfortable knife, very excellent hard use knife. And even with the extremely tough wood, the Bushcrafter just goes right through with ease. The wood I'm cutting is extremely tough, but the Bushcrafter turned it into relatively easy work for me. When I attempted to make feathers with this extremely tough wood, I was really striking out. So I instead opted to just use some down tree branches and some leaves from the yard. So I made some additional feathers with some down tree branches, and I tried to get some dry leaves, but all of the stuff that I had on hand was extremely wet. I wanted a real world test here for the fire starting capabilities of the Bushcrafter, so it took me quite a long time. I didn't do any preparation here. I broke a fire rod due to my lack of experience with starting fires, but the Bushcrafter really shined through and showed itself to be in the master class in all of these tasks. It batoned, it feathered, it threw tons of sparks from the new ferro rod that I bought, and I was able to eventually build a fire. Now, the thing that's really impressive to me here, if it wasn't apparent from the video that I've got playing right now, is that this is the first ever primitive fire I've ever built, and the Bushcrafter I feel like really gave me an advantage and made it relatively easy to do. It took me quite a long time to get it going anyway, but I was able to do it even with all this waterlogged wood and these soaking leaves. I was able to get a fire going, and I would truly depend on the Bushcrafter to save my life in that 1 in a billion hypothetical that everybody talks about. So guys, to summarize, the SOG Seal Flipper is a knife that I really wanted to be able to recommend. I really like it. I like how it looks. I like how it performs apart from the locking issue. And maybe I'll do a video where I tear this thing down and fix that factory defect and then go back to the batoning test and see if it can actually complete this challenge. I wanted to say the Seal Flipper is a true do-it-all folder because I thought it would be based on all the reviews I saw. But I wouldn't trust this knife in that 1 in a billion hypothetical like I would with the Bushcrafter. The Bushcrafter is really just a step above for this type of work, as the name would imply. I know a lot of you are probably going to be very confused in the comments why I'm even comparing a fixed blade to a folder, but like I said before, this is kind of a test to see, is folder technology up to the point where you could take something like the Seal Flipper and replace the Bushcrafter? And while that may be the case with some other folding knife that I'll find in the future, the Seal Flipper is not going to be that knife that would be able to replace the Bushcrafter in the field. That being said, I still think this is a pretty cool knife, but I'm not going to be recommending it on my channel, and I wouldn't be recommending it in person either, just because of the QC issues that I've experienced with SOG. So this is strike 2 from me for SOG's new premium lineup. They revamped their line just a couple years ago, and I've got 3 different XR lock knives now, and 2 of them have got some QC issues. So SOG, you're on strike 2, you got 1 more, and then I will not be reviewing your knives at all. Just a heads up for everybody. If you see me drop SOG from my videos at some point in the future, that's probably going to be why. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. It was a ton of work. This has been my most labor-intensive video by far, and I hope it shows. I've put so much time into the recording, the editing, the voiceover work, acquiring the knives for the video, going out and shooting footage outside, and I think it just came out spectacular. So please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know what you would like to see next. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and get subscribed. Leave a like on the video. Until next time, I will be seeing you guys later. This has been Cutting Edge Action.